Centaurus has had a long history in Brazil. We went there in 2008, 2009. We started life working an iron ore project, and we've done a lot of work knowing how to operate in country. Over the passage of time, we were able to complete a deal about 18 months ago with Vale for this Jaguar nickel sulfide project. And it was a project that had been, incubated inside their house for a period of time since 2010, not really worked. We were able to proactively approach them about that, and with our, time in country, the skills that we were able to bring to the table, the fact that we had some other tenure that was quite prospective for them, close to some of their other operating mines, allowed us to get this deal done. Now, it came with a non-JORC resource. In the last 18 months, we've spent a lot of time adding to the 55,000 metres that Vale had drilled. At the end of last year, we'd added about another 25,000 metres of drilling, and the combination of that drilling has allowed us to put out a new resource of over 500,000 tonnes of contained nickel metal. So that's really significant in a global context. We always thought that this was going to be a 20,000 tonne per annum nickel producer. It felt like it had that size about it, and everything that we've done to date has demonstrated that that is still the case. And that's the way that we've been working forward. So in the last little while, we've been able to put out a couple of scoping studies, one a base case for the production of nickel concentrate, and a second one for what we call the value-added study, which was for the production of nickel sulfate. And so we'll just step through that today. When you're looking in the nickel space, we want to be dealing directly with the batteries manufacturers. We feel that that's where the growth is. Obviously, nickel's been used in stainless steel for a long period of time, but the growth is really going to come from the battery space, and we just don't feel like there's enough Class 1 nickel around. You can get Class 1 nickel from laterite projects by very capital-intensive and expensive HPAL processes, but to have a sulfide project close to surface that's going to be low emissions, I think is going to hold us in very good stead to be able to bring this project on and to deliver tonnes for a market that's really crying out for it. So the study, which I'll focus on today, is a value-added study for the production of nickel sulfate. Following this study, our board has given us the green light to progress into definitive feasibility study work. As I said, there's a 500,000 tonne resource. Of that, we've been able to, convert a large portion of that into the production target and mill feed, and that's sitting at about 340,000 tonnes of contained nickel metal. That's at 33, a bit over 1%. Remembering most of this mineralisation is going to come out in open pit. Once we recover that through the production process, we'll have about 260,000 tonnes of nickel metal, which has given us notionally around 20,000 tonnes a year for a 13-year mine life. So we think that that's very significant in its own right. There's not too many places where you have such long life mines in a nickel sulfide space. A lot of the nickel mines that we have here in Western Australia are deeper underground, don't quite have the same production profile that we will be talking about. But then you can also see the economics that this project can spin off, and I think we've used pretty conservative pricing assumptions at $7.50 a pound. I think we're sitting at around $8 a pound at the moment, and we've got a 50 cent per pound sulfate premium, which again, I think, considered what other people have been talking about, that's quite a conservative pricing estimate. But that delivers us over $1 billion post-tax NPV, IRR over 50%, and a payback under 2 years. So on any metric, this project really stands up on a global scale. And the margins that we generate and the cash flow that we're going to generate will be quite significant. So we feel like we're pretty blessed to have a project with that scale, but there's still plenty of upside with the project. We've got 65,000 metres of drilling to complete in 2021. A lot of that will be further infill work to get more of the inferred resources up into the indicated category, which, as Steve also pointed out, you need to have so that you can convert those resources into reserves. So right now, I think we've got 5 diamond rigs on site, 4 are operating, one's just mobilised this week. We've got another 2 diamond rigs mobilising by the end of June, and then we've got 1 RC rig operating. So there's plenty of upside from an exploration perspective. The other important thing when you're in Brazil, or an important thing when you're in Brazil, is where you're located. Obviously, it's a big country. We're located in the Carajás mineral province, and this really is one of the most prolific mineral belts anywhere on the globe. Within this sort of 100 by 150 kilometre zone, you've got some of the biggest mines going around, and you can sort of see in top of page there, Sulfate mine, over 1 billion tonnes of copper. I think that does about 250,000 tonnes of copper and 300,000 ounces of gold a year. You've got S11D there, which is the highest grade, largest single iron ore mine globally, producing some of the best product for Vale. And with that comes a whole raft of infrastructure. So I can fly on a 737 jet in the Carajás airstrip. The town where you're based there, Parauapebas, is 250,000 people. All the mining service providers are based out of that town. You've got sealed roads to where our project is. You've got high voltage power lines. And even as close as 15 kilometres from our project, Vale have a nickel laterite project, a ferronickel project, which they've spent over $3 billion on. So with that just comes a whole lot of infrastructure, which you don't get in other locations, and we feel really pleased to be able to access that, and we don't feel that there'll be any impediments to being able to build this project as we take it forward. One of the other things that I guess is really a standout for this project is the fact that in Brazil, 80% of your power is from renewable sources. So when you combine the fact that you've got a sulfide source of ore and you've got renewable power, the CO2 emissions on this project are going to be very low. And that, I feel, is over time, the market is just be coming around to it very, very quickly, that is something that you've got to focus on. The other side of that, though, is that we also get low-cost power. So at under 10 cents a kilowatt hour, it's one of the key reasons why we've been able to keep our operating costs low, why our cash flow generation will be high, and why we're able to consider a sulfate project in this location, which requires a fair bit of oxygen, but oxygen requires the power. So renewable power to effectively service this whole project. So the resource, as I said, 500,000 tonnes, 560,000 tonnes to be precise, to take us forward. With that, the acquisition and discovery costs have been very low. Most of the mineralisation sits in an area there called Jaguar South, bottom of page, Jaguar Central, middle of page. And I think one of the things that, again, differentiates this project is the grade that comes with the fact that you are in an open pit environment. So we'll be able to take a lot of this material out in open pit before we need to transition to underground. I think our underground's starting in year 4 or year 5, and that just makes for a much simpler mining proposition. You can sort of see there multiple pits. You can see where we're mining out that mineralisation, 340,000 tonnes of nickel in the mill feed, and doing that at a strip ratio of around about 6.5 to 1. So from a process point of view, the top half of that flow sheet is a traditional nickel concentrate flow sheet, very similar to what you'd see here in Western Australia. The bottom half of that page is the pressure oxidation circuit, which converts the nickel concentrate feed into a high-value nickel sulfate product, which can then be trucked out or railed out to the market. We've done a lot of test work already, but there's still more work to be done, but we're very confident that this process to be able to produce a sulfate is going to be able to be achieved relatively easy. From a layout perspective, it's a pretty simple layout. Process plant, bottom left, the pits running through the middle there, Jaguar South, Jaguar Central, waste dumps and an integrated waste landform. So this integrated waste landform is something that's used quite extensively here in Australia. Hasn't really been used extensively in Brazil before, but given the issues that they've had over there with tailings dam, we feel that this is a really safe way to be able to put a tailings dam on site. It's got the highest safety factor against embankment failure, other than putting your tailings into a disused pit. At the start of the project, obviously, we don't have a disused pit, so this is the next best solution. We'll also be able to take our pre-strip from the pits and use that as the build around the tailings dam. The project is driven by the environmental approval process, so that is still the critical path for us. The environmental impact assessment is nearing completion. We've done all the wet and dry season data collection. We've just been waiting to finish the scoping study to be able to have the layout for the dumps and the tailings dam and the plant, etc., to be able to put that into the environmental impact assessment document. We're weeks away from being able to lodge that, and then we'll be running in the environmental approval process. So in Brazil, that's a 3-stage process. Initially, they'll grant you what they call a preliminary licence, and that's the approval of your EIREMA. After that, you then apply for your installation licence. And it's the approval of the installation licence that will then bring the environmental approval process in line with your mines department process to get your mining lease granted. So we're targeting the first quarter of 2023 to get those approvals through. But we know that we've still got a lot of work to push through to meet that timetable. We've got really good support for this project in the local community. Again, it's an area that's got a lot of infrastructure, but it still is relatively remote and poor. So the local communities are right behind the project. They can see the value that we're already bringing to the table. We're doing a lot of road upgrade work. We're helping the local communities with sort of water supply and various things. And I guess when you look at the system in Brazil, that a large portion of the government royalty is already earmarked for deployment into the local community, that's a big reason why they will get behind each of these projects. So this is a very significant project for that local region. As I said, the timetable is there. If everything goes the way that we want it to, we'll be looking to make a decision to mine in the back half of 2023, looking to build during the course of 2024, and then probably up into sort of production early 2025. So I think that that's the project as it stands at the moment. There's still some optimisation work that we'll do during the course of the definitive feasibility study. I think from a CapEx and OpEx point of view, once we actually start getting real costs in local currency in Brazil and then converting them back to US dollars, I think we have an opportunity to reduce our capital and operating costs. The mine schedule at the moment has been a pretty simple one where we've just been mining down bench by bench. We haven't really looked at starter pits and then cutbacks and getting the level of sophistication in there that you would normally have on a definitive feasibility study. And we also think in the process route, there's some tweaks that we can make to that at the back end. So when we produce the nickel sulfate, we're also producing a mixed sulfide precipitate. And at the moment, that's a very general product, which we can do more work to fine tune. But I think, when you look at the economics, and, we're a big believer that nickel prices are on the rise. At $9 a pound, you can start to see the numbers really take off from an economic perspective. And, we don't see any reason why that couldn't be the case as we're bringing this project on stream in the middle of this decade. And the other real, upside for us is the exploration. So as I said, we've got 65,000 metres of drilling to do this year. We're sort of well down the track with that. We've got the other rigs that are coming to site at the moment. And up until now, we've really focused in on this open pit material. We've still got more work to do on the conversion of the inferred resources to indicated, which will allow us to convert that to reserves during the DFS. But one of the real big opportunities here, and you can sort of see hopefully on those cross sections, we've got the pit outlines there. And most of the mineralisation in this part of the world is vertical. At Jaguar Central, which is on the left, we've got these sort of shallow plunging chutes where we've got a lot of high grade. So we're chasing those chutes further to the east and continuing to hit the mineralisation. And we had announcements out of a week or so back on some of the visuals that we're seeing as we chase that mineralisation deeper. Now that will either take the pits deeper or it will add to our underground development story. Now, most of the mineralisation that we've defined to date is probably down around about 300 metres. So we do feel like there's plenty of upside. There's a lot of nickel mines, nickel sulfide mines that are much deeper than us. So we've got a high degree of confidence that as we drill deeper, we will find more. And from a regional exploration perspective, the areas outlined here in green, principally out in the western portion of the tenement, have not really been drilled before. So if you think about, it's a little bit hard to see, but those black outlines are the pits that we've currently got. Those pits have probably had about 300 drill holes in there. The green areas have probably had maybe a dozen drill holes before we started our RC program. So we've infilled soils, we've infilled the mag, we've done fixed loop EM, we've got a number of targets there. that we still expect to see the resource to continue to grow. So the register's pretty tight. We think the value equation is really strong for investors. We sit there with about 250 million market cap, but you can see from the project not only the value that already exists in the project, but also the potential upside that comes. We've got a really strong team of people on the ground in Brazil. Obviously, a lack of travel over there in recent times has been a little bit challenging, but Bruno Scarpelli, who heads up our team in Brazil, has been with us since 2010, is doing an awesome job over there. Gaudius Montresor, who's our exploration manager up in the field, running a team of about 50-odd guys and another 50-odd drillers, is doing an amazing job in what is obviously challenging conditions with the COVID situation around. So, we're on top of it. We've got good procedures in place to manage the safety of our people, and we've been able to continue to drill, which is fantastic and a credit to our guys in country. So I'll leave you with that. We're nickel focused. We do have a historical iron ore asset that we're looking to extract some value from, but for right now, it's all about the nickel. We want to be dealing directly with the battery guys. We're in the DFS, or moving into that DFS phase now. We've got a fantastic resource. It will continue to grow as we do more drilling. There's no doubt about that. And then when you look at the economics that we've already got, it's going to be low capital intensity project, low operating cost, which is high margin and high cash flow. So we think that it's a really good opportunity for people to get into that nickel space. And I think the more that people start to see, well, where am I going to source nickel that is going to be done in a low emission environment, I think this is going to be an A1 location to do that. So thanks for your time.